But in the 2nd month of our marriage, while I was setting nets out to take deer, high on the peak of flowering Hymettus, pale Aurora, fresh from driving off nocturnal gloom, first saw, then ravished me against my will. I still loved Procris. She was in my heart. Her name was always trembling on my lips. I spoke of nothing but the ties that bound us, of fresh delights and recent pleasures proven, of the first doings on our deserted bed. Such talk upset Aurora. "Stop your thinking, you thankless dolt. You may have your Procris, but if I've any gift at all of foresight, you'll wish you hadn't." Angrily, she sent me back to my wife, and while I was returning, I turned her warnings over in my mind, and as I thought on them, began to fear that my young wife had not observed my rights. Youth and beauty led me to believe her an adulteress. Her character forbade me to believe it. I settled upon making myself wretched by trying to disturb her constant nature through bribery. Aurora turned my fear, and helped me out by altering my looks. Unrecognized, I slipped into Athena's beloved city, and entered my own home. Dumbstruck at sight of her, I nearly dropped my scheme for testing her fidelity. I barely kept from blurting out the truth and giving her the kisses she deserved. Though she was sad, none could be lovelier than she was in her sorrow, longing for the husband taken from her. Why tell how often her modesty withstood my challenges, how often she would meet my offers with, "I keep myself for one, wherever he may be, him I love only." What man in his right mind would not have been contented by such proof of loyalty? I was not satisfied. Out to draw blood, my own, I battled on, and offered her a fortune just to spend one night with me, then added even more to what I'd offered, and finally got her to hesitate. At which, unlucky winner, I cried out, "Oh wretch, here was a false adulterer. I was your own true husband, faithless one. By my own witness, you are apprehended." But she made no response to me at all, and silenced by her overwhelming shame, fled her deceitful husband in his house. Detesting the entire race of men because of the wrong I had done to her, abandoned, I was desolate. A fire scorched me right to the marrow of my bones. I begged her pardon and confessed my sins, admitting that I too might have succumbed tempted by such gifts if they'd been offered. And when I had confessed such things to her, after avenging her injured honor, she returned to me. Years passed in sweet agreement, and, as if she herself were not gift enough, she gave me another one, this javelin, which, as you see, I'm holding in my hands. No one could have come between us. If great Jove had offered marriage, she would have declined, and I was interested in no other, not even Venus, if she herself appeared, for in our hearts the flames burned equally. In early morning, when the sun's first rays touched on the hilltops, youthful eagerness to go off hunting drew me to the woods. When I was sated with the slaughter of game, I would go seek some cool refreshing shade and gentle breeze that emanated from the chilly hollows. I named that cool breeze Ara. Now someone overheard these words of mine and misinterpreted their ambiguities, and hearing me so often summon Ara, assumed that I was speaking to a nymph of the same name, whom he thought was my lover. At once this rash informer went to Procris, and whispered in her ear the false story of my alleged infidelity. How credulous love is! My wife collapsed from grief, in a dead swoon. Often, however, she doubted, and she hoped in her wretchedness that she might be mistaken, and rejected what she had heard as unreliable. She would not hold her husband to be sinful unless she witnessed his misdeeds herself. On the next day, I made for the woods, and after a successful hunt, reclined on the soft grass and called out, "Ara, come alleviate the stresses of my labors." And suddenly, while I was calling her, I thought I heard a groaning sound, and yet I cried out once more, "Come, my dearest, come." Hearing a rustling in the falling leaves, I took it for some beast and hurled my javelin. Procris emerged, clutching her wounded breast, and I cried out, "Woe is me!" As soon as I had recognized my faithful darling's voice, I rushed to where I heard it coming from, beside myself with fear of what I'd find, and found her dying, with her garments soaked and soiled in her own blood, and oh, how awful! Though she was failing and very close to death, she forced herself to speak these few words. By our faithful vows, and by the gods above, and by those gods soon mine below, by what is owed my love, unchanging even as I die, the love that is the very cause of my own death, do not let Ara take my place in bed. She spoke, and I immediately knew how she had been mistaken about the name. and I explained the truth of it to her, but to what end was any explanation? She fell back in my arms, and her last strength fled with her blood. As soon as she could fix her eyes on anything, she looked at me, and on my lips I caught her luckless spirit, but she died easily and seemed content.